Starting this video off in a little bit different setting than normal. I am in the truck here, aka my office. I swear I do most of my video editing and computer work in this thing because I just like sitting in it. But last night I had an idea for a bracket to go along the backside of the tail panel. I think it'll kind of tie the trunk area together. So this morning here, I went ahead and made up some tabs for that. That way I can get them ordered, and hopefully they'll get here by this weekend so I can knock out this piece this weekend. But I've been wanting to use Send Cut Send for a while now and been messing around with just the basically parts editor that they offer. This is about as simple of a part as you can make based upon their services. It's just a 90 bracket with a tapped insert right there, so that'll work pretty good. Gonna go ahead and get these guys ordered. That way, like I said, hopefully they'll get here this weekend. Hopefully the metal I ordered for this will get here within the next few days as well. So between now and then, I'll go through, make the template for this piece, get everything else measured out, and should all come together pretty good here. I ended off the last video wrapping up this tail panel here. I got the trunk gutters set in place. I just went through, remeasured the quarter panels, the tail panel, and the gutters down to the chassis table. When I first set all the panels on the car, I went through, measured out a bunch of specific points. So I just went through, double checked that everything is looking good, and we are now. Last video I also mentioned I'm going to start working on a panel for this back piece here, but it's a lot more than just a panel for the back piece. In order to make that, I have to go through and at least start the process of, I guess, flushing in these trunk gutters here. So from factory, all these panels were overlapped from each other and just spot welded together. It was a fast process and it was pretty strong. Now, it had this seam that was right here with this panel overlapping. This probably would have been just filled with like a seam sealer of sorts or just left open. All these seams right here, you would have been able to visibly see, you know, the moment you pop the trunk. So my goal is to go through and eliminate all of that, make this look like it is all one piece. That way, when you open up the trunk, there's no spot welds or plug welds just kind of randomly placed. And then there's no seams with gaps throughout the gutter area here. I'm thinking on this already, and I'm probably going to have to make my own kind of end cap piece here. But if I can do this right, that should be the only piece I have to make, because like I said, all these panels overlap each other, right? So where this piece overlaps the tail panel, I'll go through, scribe a line just on that. I'll do that throughout the sides here as well, and then I'll take it off, cut that section off, you know, test fit it a couple more times, trim it exactly where it needs to be. That way I can put this gutter back on. It'll basically butt up right against the tail panel here, right up against the quarters. I can go through, fully weld that up, grind them down. It'll be plenty strong and it'll look seamless as well. The next pieces I'm going to be working on are actually pieces for the front of the car. These will be panels for the inside of the front door jambs. I built those over the last summer, and I think August, September sometime while I was waiting to do some other stuff on the car. I went through and measured out, made templates for these panels, made the brackets for them as well. So I kept everything, spent a lot of time on these, figuring out the math for it and everything. These fit pretty much perfectly. So now that these are good, it is time to transfer them to aluminum there. Like I said, they're pretty simple. This panel is just gonna go on the inside right there. You can see it. I'll have a bend in it. So that bend will go along the flat piece, which I have the nutserts in, that'll bolt up to there. Then it's gonna kick out. I'm not sure the angle yet. I gotta go through and measure it. It'll kick out to the back, and then right along this lip right there is where one of these brackets will get welded to, and then I'll either tap this or put a nutsert in that as well, and we'll have bolts going along the back side. I have yet to bend any aluminum yet, and I've yet to bend any aluminum with my little $60 Harbor Freight brake there. So I went through and used my test piece here. This is also the piece I tested out for the dimple here. So I'll cut this up and use it for scraps or other projects down the road. But this actually worked out pretty well. This is way more of an aggressive angle than what I will be doing on these pieces here, but I just kind of wanted to see how far of a bend this will do with keeping a sharp line, and I think it'll do a 90 pretty good, because I am happy with that. That looks really nice for what it is there. So happy I tested that. Now that I'm good with that, like I said, get all my templates made out. It's time to transfer these pieces here to aluminum. Bend them, cut them, drill out the holes for the bolts, and then we'll be rocking and rolling. Generally start by laying the piece down on the brake here. I got the line that needs to be bent on in Sharpie, just so when I lay this on top of it, it's a lot easier to see and line up with the line on the brake here. Just kind of get that in an accurate position. Fun with the clamps here, I'd like to get ones that are a little bit deeper, that way it reaches to the back side of that to hold that down. But like I said, I tested this out here, and this works just fine. So start out with a little bit of tension, put the big clamps on the end, that all lined up. I got the back side of the Sharpie line barely peeking through all the way across. That way when I go to bend it, it doesn't make that 1-inch piece that's going across here any shorter. If it was on the front side of the Sharpie line, I could risk, making that piece just a touch shorter. That way it won't line up with the nutserts that I have on the car already. I don't really know what the thought process behind this was with whoever designed this brake, but without some sort of clamp on here, I don't know, are you supposed to like hold this with your hand, or I don't really know. That's why I kind of came up with this. Like I said, it works for now. It's not great, but it's fairly affordable, and it fits on my workbench here, so can't really ask for much else. Gauge here, and this is going to be kind of tricky because obviously this piece is on top of the other piece, so I can't just set it down in there. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of use my best judgment off of this. Like I said, it's not a crazy angle. It's only 040 aluminum, so if it's not 100% there, I can go through and kind of bend it in place by hand once it's bolted to the car. But I at least like to get a nice crisp line there as good as I can. So we're going to go through, kind of eyeball this, and go very slow here. Doesn't look horrible there. This is tricky. Not horrible. Could use a little bit more of a bend probably, but I think that'll work okay for now. Go in small increments, make sure that's looking pretty good. And then like I said, if I gotta put a little bit more of a bend in it, toss it back on here, bend it up, and should be good there. No matter how accurate you get the template, the cardboard piece will always be a little bit off of the actual metal piece. Obviously the cardboard has a little bit of play in it. So I always cut the piece of metal, whether it be aluminum or steel, just a little bit bigger, generally like a 16th to an 1/8 inch across the board. So I got the top trimmed, the front trimmed, the bottom trimmed. That all fits real well. Same thing with this side here. And now I'm moving on to that back piece, which kind of got that angle with that little notch that pops out. And you can see that will sit right in this little pocket here. So this side is all trimmed out. Basically what I did is took calipers, measured the distance from the end of this just to the inside of the radius. Ended up being 1.8 millimeters. And on this side here, you can see I basically just pushed this up against this, took the one end of the caliper and just drug it all the way up to the top, scored a line on it. So I'll pop this one off, trim that up a little bit there, just so it matches this side here. And then I can go through and start mocking up my brackets for the rear and marking on the metal here where I gotta drill the holes for those. Hardware for the back panel showed up the other day, so I went ahead and got that bolted on for good there. All the holes are drilled in the panel itself, and I'm not totally happy with it. I am gonna go through and remake this panel for a couple different reasons. You can probably see on the camera right here because I can see it through the screen, but this side kind of dips down. That's because I accidentally kinked the panel over there when I was working on it on the workbench. And although I hammer and dollied it and metal finished it back into place, it just kind of threw the center line of all these holes off, and you can really see that over there. I don't like that. It looks goofy from some angles. So not really a huge fan of that. I also don't like the 1-inch dimple dies. I think I'm gonna bump them up to 1.5. It'll get rid of a lot of the dead space on here, and I think it'll fill up that panel a little bit more. It might correspond with the bigger dimple dies on this panel better. And then the third thing is just fitment wise, it needs to be better and it can be better. So next time I'm at the metal shop, I'll go ahead and pick up some more aluminum, remake that piece. Wow, yeah, you can really see that kink on that side over there. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and redo that piece there. It's all right, but like I said, it can be better, so might as well take time, do that the right way. The brackets though turned out really good, so I'm happy with that. In terms of the front pieces here, I got those brackets fully welded on, and those panels fit up really nice, so I'm happy with how those turned out. I gotta decide if I wanna do maybe like a B-rolled outline on those panels, or maybe some dimple dies on them. They're too plain as is. It's not flowing with the rest of the interior and the rest of like things I have planned design wise. So just looks a little bit basic as is. We'll see what I end up deciding to do there, but this is kind of a weird way to end off this video because I feel like this piece here isn't finished and the parts up there aren't technically 100% done. And that's why this video is actually coming out late here, because I decided to move on to some other stuff on the rear of the car, which you guys will see in the next video. Pretty excited for. That's going well so far. So I just took a couple day break, focused on that part, and then came back to this panel and kind of put a game plan together, which is going to be to remake it. So you guys will see that in an upcoming video, because it's going to be 10 times better than that piece right there. Just take this as a learning experience, go through, apply, you know, the good and the bad things from this one to that next piece, because although it's just a small panel, it is a pretty complex piece, and it will be an important piece to the kind of rear trunk area of the car here.